Penguin Random House Audio presents United States of Jihad, Investigating America's Homegrown Terrorists by Peter Bergen. Read for you by Nicholas Guy Smith. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. Friedrich Nietzsche, Beyond Good and Evil. Chapter 1. Americans for ISIS. Against them make ready your strength to the utmost of your power, including steeds of war, to strike terror into the hearts of the enemies of Allah. The Quran. On the 13th anniversary of 9/11, 19-year-old Mohammed Hamza Khan sent an email to the U.S. State Department, inquiring about the application he had made for a passport, which had still not arrived. 2 weeks later, Khan paid $2,679 for flights from Chicago to Vienna, and then on to Istanbul for himself and his two younger siblings. He had planned meticulously, saving up the money for the tickets while working at a local big-box home supply store, assembling tourist visas for Turkey, and packing sleeping bags and clothes for the trip. Khan had met someone online who had provided him with the number of a contact in Istanbul who would help to get him and his siblings to the Turkish-Syrian border, and from there on to the region occupied by the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS. Accompanying Khan would be his 17-year-old sister Minna and his 16-year-old brother Khalid, all three excited to make their pilgrimage to the Promised Land. Minna planned to marry an ISIS fighter, while Khan himself planned to serve in a combat role perhaps, or with the group's police force. As he contemplated the trip, Khan doodled in his notebook a picture of a fighter with the legend "Come to Jihad" in Arabic behind him, as well as the distinctive ISIS flag, white Arabic letters on a black background. Meanwhile, Minna watched Salil Sawarim, The Clanking of the Swords, one of a series of one-hour videos showing summary executions of ISIS's enemies. She later tweeted that she had watched it, including emoticons of a smiley face and a heart. Earlier that month, on September the 2nd, 2014, American journalist Steven Sotloff had been executed by ISIS following a brutal imprisonment. The beheadings of both Sotloff and his fellow hostage, James Foley, also an American journalist, were videotaped, carried out off-camera, while a black-clad terrorist demanded that U.S. airstrikes against ISIS cease. In an unmistakable London accent, the terrorist addressed President Barack Obama, promising that, just as your missiles continue to strike our people, our knife will continue to strike the necks of your people. According to a Wall Street Journal NBC poll, the executions were the most widely followed news story of the past 5 years in the United States, provoking widespread outrage. Yet even as the story developed, the three American teenagers living in suburban Chicago were finalizing their plans to join what they saw as the perfect Islamic State. Hamza Khan and his siblings saw the soldiers of ISIS not as fanatical Taliban-style murderers, but as the creators of a utopia. Khan, who had been 6 at the time of the 9/11 attacks, wrote a 3-page letter to his parents, explaining why he was leaving Chicago. He told them that an Islamic utopia had been established by ISIS, and that he felt obligated to migrate there, grandly extending an invitation to my family to join him. He couldn't bear that his American tax dollars would be used to kill my Muslim brothers and sisters, and wrote that he was upset by the depravity of the West, which he described as getting more immoral day by day. He didn't want his own children to be exposed to filth like this. Writing in capital letters, Khan instructed his parents to, first and foremost, please make sure not to tell the authorities. Khan's siblings also wrote letters. His brother wrote that the evil of this country makes me sick, citing the deaths of innocent Afghan children in attacks by American drones. His sister wrote of her longing for death and the afterlife. Both begged their parents not to call the police, seeming to understand that joining ISIS was viewed as a crime by American authorities. The infatuation the Khan teenagers felt for ISIS was hard to square with their upbringing. Their father, Shafi, and mother, Zareen, had come to the United States from India as college students, and both readily embraced life in America, which they viewed as a paradise. Even now, Zareen says, everything is so organized. The people are so nice. You know, everything is by the rules. Her husband, Shafi, explains, there's a lot of opportunities. You can do anything you want. You can be a lawyer. You can be a doctor. You can be a businessman. You can study whatever you like. While he earned a degree in environmental science from Northeastern Illinois University, Shafi worked as a gift store supervisor at Chicago's O'Hare Airport, before going on to work for an Islamic charity. Zareen stayed at home with their 5 children. They became U.S. citizens. The household in which the Khan children grew up was observant, but not extreme. The Khan parents went out of their way to shield their children from elements of American culture they deemed too permissive, such as television shows that featured profanity. When the kids were young, the TV broke, and it was never replaced. Zareen wore a veil, and all the Khan children attended Islamic schools. This was partly because the education there was better than in the local public schools. In India, Zareen and Shafi had attended Catholic schools for the same reason, but also because the Khan parents wanted their children to grow up as practicing Muslims. When Hamza turned 13, he spent more than 2 years learning to recite the Quran from memory, a feat that entails memorizing some 6,000 Arabic verses. Yet even as Zareen and Shafi respected Muslim traditions, they raised their children to be Americans. The children grew up playing basketball and reading Marvel comics and Tintin books. They shopped at Walmart and went on a vacation to Niagara Falls. The whole family pitched in to do yard work. During high school, Hamza volunteered at the local mosque, but also read Japanese manga. He was a fan of TV shows such as The Walking Dead and CSI, and had a girlfriend. When Kim Kardashian was visiting Chicago, Hamza took a selfie with her. Like many Chicagoans, he was a big fan of the Bulls and the Bears. After high school, Hamza started studying engineering at Benedictine University. The Khans were then homeschooling Minna, who planned to be a doctor. As for so many other Muslim American families, the American dream seemed to be working its magic for the Khans. On October the 4th, 2014, Hamza Khan rose before dawn to say the first of the 5 daily prayers with his father. When they returned from the local mosque at around 6 a.m., Shafi returned to bed, and Hamza and his brother and sister launched their plan. They folded up comforters in their beds to make it appear that they were still sleeping there, gathered their freshly issued U.S. passports and tickets to Vienna and Istanbul, and took a taxi to O'Hare Airport. Their contact in Turkey was a shadowy ISIS recruiter they had met online, Abu Kaka, with whom they had arranged, communicating anonymously via the smartphone messaging applications Kik and WhatsApp, to travel to Raqqa, Syria, completing a 5,000-mile journey from the heart of the Midwest to ISIS headquarters. At last their dream of Jihad was becoming a reality. They didn't make it. U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials stopped the Khans at O'Hare. Around noon, FBI agents arrived at the Khan house, where Shafi opened the door. One of the agents asked, "Do you know where your kids are?" Shafi replied, "They are upstairs."
Sample complete. Ready to continue?